thought what we would do today, as was kind of suggested to me, is a back to school type video, but regarding pens, but not. I'm not really looking at this from the perspective of being a student somewhere, but more from my work perspective. But if people think I should do a video on student pens, then I probably can. Anyway, how do I select what I take to work? It's the end of summer that I'm recording this, so the new term is about to start. If you don't know, I teach at a polytechnic, so that's my job. And I make certain decisions about the pens I take to work. And given that people seem to enjoy videos where I talk to my more or less organized thought processes, I thought this might be fun. So what do I take to work pen-wise? And how do I make those decisions? I will show you some of the pens that I currently have inked up, and then I'll try to reason through how I make decisions on what I bring to work. So starting off, the type of situation I work in is an office type situation. So I would imagine if you work outside a lot, this is all obviously going to be very different. But my situation is that I work in an office, that I work inside, so I can bring pens that don't have to be super robust. I can fiddle a bit with that. My main choices are, I typically want to bring pens that are practical and that are somewhat robust. Doesn't mean they all have to be titanium or something, but I mean something that ideally doesn't roll off my desk and crack. And most importantly, that they are pleasant. I have used a lot of pens over the past decade, and if it doesn't write, it's out. And my pen's right, because if they don't, I send them to a Nibmeister, I get it fixed, and they write. But I'm done with pens that skip too much, that's unusable to me. So that's the first sort of set of variables that I look at. If you think, if I'm looking that way, it's just because that's where my notes are. I don't want to have them here because I have the microphone here and it's a very large mic. So that's the first variables that I have. Then I will start showing you pens. But then another part of my consideration is I want to have with me at all times at least one pen that is not too ostentatious. And yes, I do have some pens that are fairly ostentatious. Think of something like a Visconti Speakeasy. Think of some of the classic pens, very bright reds, that kind of stuff. The reason I'd like to have something with me that's not too ostentatious is that sometimes you have to go to an important meeting, and sometimes there are very important people there. And sometimes you don't want to attract attention to what you are writing with, simply because you don't want to do that thing. So I like to always have at least one pen with me that is maybe nondescript, goes a bit too far, but that is not, so to speak, neon green with flashing lights on it, that sort of stuff. Just because. So I'll show you one of the pens that for me that fit that criterion. This is pen I didn't buy. Scrivener sent me this very kindly, I think as a thank you for some of the reviews I've done. And they also engraved it with Dr. Brown, which is very sweet of them. To me, this is a normal pen. It's not an obscene oversize. It's a very nice finish. It has actually a pretty nice finial, and it's a very pleasant writer. But this, to me, this doesn't attract an enormous amount of attention, especially when I contrast it with some of the other stuff that I have with me right now. You'll see what I mean. So this is my reliable pen. It's very nice. It's also metal. I could drop this on the floor right now. It's not going to break. It's all metal pieces, which I like a lot. So that is part of that. I want one gray man style pen. Then there are other pens that I like. So another type of pen that I like to have with me is something with a large ink capacity. That pen I've just shown you is just a cartridge converter. My large capacity pen right now is a pen that I've been playing around with a lot. Was sent to me by Asvine. This is the Asvine V200, vacuum filled. As you can see, this holds a lot of ink. It's already half empty because I've been playing around. Well, okay, it's a little over half of the ink left. Notice the positive approach to that as opposed to saying it's half empty. It's more than half full. I like that because sometimes you sit in very long meetings. You may have to take a lot of notes. I don't want to run out of ink. So in those cases, for those kinds of cases, I like pens that have a large capacity. Think of vacuum filled. But if not that, I like to bring a Conid king size with the Conid filling system. Large capacity. Or recently, very kindly, someone sent me a Cusado Kakari. Similar type filling system, not the same but similar, also large capacity, and all of them are clear. So I can see immediately, because that's the second part of that variable for me, it's not only large capacity, but it's a clear pen. So that I can look at this and immediately see that I have ink. If I have to go to a longer meeting, or a meeting where I expect that I'll be taking a lot of notes, and that happens, as I'm sure it happens for all of us, I can immediately pull this out, I can say, yep, this has enough ink. There's no way I'm using this up in a single meeting. Right, that would be the meeting from hell. So I know that I have a lot of ink. I know it'll keep going for a while, and it's a pleasant writer. Right now, this came with a steel nib. I put a gold Bock nib on it. Very pleasant writer, very pleasant to use. So I really like that. So I have that as a variable. So now we've had sort of practical, reliable, pleasant, robust. I have one non-attraction. What do you call that? Not attraction. Sorry, non-attention grabbing pen. I have one large capacity pen. And then I like to have some different nib options with me. So again, going back to what I've already shown you, this pen that Scrivener sent me, medium nib. Medium is great because it's not too fine, it's not too broad, it's just medium, it's great. The V200 has currently a broad gold nib. So now I have a medium nib and I have a broad nib. I like to also have a fine nib with me because sometimes you need to quickly fill out a form. Someone shows up and they want something filled out. For me, that happens because the students, they come in and then they say, I have this form, could you waive this prereq, or could you give me access to this course or whatever. I may have to sign something on the spot, and I don't want to have an oblique triple broad and that's the only thing I have, because then you can't sign in the little areas you have to actually fill out something. So today I happen to have this pen. This is a B.R.E tactical pen. I've just shot the review, so if it's not up yet, then it will be at some point. Titanium pen, but this has a Lamy nib actually, which is quite interesting, but it's fine. So here I have a fine nib, and that's great for filling out forms. And because of that, I also have a black ink in it. Ink is something I may as well address now because I've broached the topic. I like to have different inks with me as well, including a neutral ink. This is a black ink. I like having something like a black or a blue ink because sometimes you need to sign something. It has happened to me once in the past that we were signing a card because someone had passed away. And if that day you only have hot pink ink with you, that's maybe not the most appropriate. So I like to have a neutral ink for that matter as well. So here I have my fine nib pen. Works well for forms, works well for signing maybe not super happy things. Neutral color. Probably also don't want to sign something in hot pink, right? Depending on what you do, but I mean, you know what I mean. Fine nib, neutral ink. The Scrivener pen has a nice blue ink in it. This is a Iroshizuku Konpeki. Very nice lubricated ink. Vibrant blue, works very well. So now I have two fairly neutral colors. And then for the fun of it, because I hadn't used it in a while, this is Mont Blanc Irish Green. So now I have a blue, a black, and a green. And of course, there always has to be one pen that has B.R.E brown in it, because that's my ink. So I have this pen that my main man, William Shakur, 3D printed for me. It's huge, right? I've shown you this before. This is my great exposition. Look at it next to the Scrivener, and then you see what I mean. It's a huge pen. I think it has about a 14 milliliter capacity, so this is over 1/6 of a bottle of Akamon ink in it. But this is my my ink, and it's a double broad titanium nib. So now I also have a nice broader nib that is very reliable. It's a very nice, reliable titanium nib. And that for me serves different purposes. Nice broad nib, more expressive because it's broader, my ink, and I can sign with that. Depending on what it is, I can sign something with it. Sometimes, let me rephrase that. When I grade paper exams, I don't want to mark something with a ballpoint. And I also don't want to use red ink because red looks like something is wrong, and I try to look at written feedback as this is something you can improve. But I also, for fraudulent purposes, because things happen, I want to have an ink that stands out. So I use B.R.E. Brown. That pen, this pen, came in this nice pouch, was made for me by an online friend. This pen has the advantage that, first of all, it's 14 milliliters of ink, so I can grade dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of exams or papers without running out of ink. But that's my ink. So it's very difficult to come back and try and alter that unless you have my ink, which is not something you can just run out and buy at Staples. I've thought this through, you see. Okay, so now we have that. So now we have a double broad nib, we have a fine nib, a medium nib, and we have another a broad nib. Then I typically like to have something, a pen that I just find insanely comfortable. And for me right now, that is this pen, also made by William Shakur of Titan Pens. This is the Relot 2.0. He built this for me around a number 7 Jowo nib, but you can get it with other nibs. Incredibly comfortable, triangular pen, large capacity piston filler. This is so incredibly comfortable, it's insane. And here I have Moonstone, I think, in it, Edelstein Moonstone. So that's a dark gray ink, another nice neutral shade. Then the final pen that I have with me is this pen, and this is a very special Leonardo that's not available yet. Moving on. Hint, hint. Ooh, what's that? I don't know, but I'm not going to answer any questions about it. You'll have to wait and see. These are my main considerations. What I like about the fine nib too is that sometimes you have to write on not the greatest quality paper. So having a fine nib, I think, is always a wise idea. So that's kind of my thought process and what I bring to work, and why different nib types, different inks, different pens, more outstanding in the literal sense of the word, less outstanding, something robust, something you can take to a meeting, something that might look a little fancier, because I will say, when I whip this out, and I have used this in meetings, it's a conversation starter. And sometimes that's fun too, but sometimes I don't want that. And so then, you know what I mean? Then I don't have that. And that's it. And sorry, final thing, because people then always want to see that. How do I carry this? Well, I've shown you the case for the really big pen. That triangular pen is in this case. And this is a case, I forgot who made it. I know I got it at Lay Wines. Shinola in Detroit made this. A little leather case. It's not that little. Fits bigger pens. Very nice. And then my standard set of 4 pens I have in this Van der Spek pouch, made in the Netherlands by the Dutch company Van der Spek. I've had this for a very long time. And the recent addition to this that it's one of the greatest things I've done pen-wise, is notice this little cloth, which fits perfectly and comes out. It's a little cloth. It came with something like screen protector for a phone or something. Little cloth, fantastic, because you have it right with the pens. It's just as wide as the pen case. It's also black. You barely see it, and it fits right underneath this loop on the case. And then I put one pen clip kind of over it so it doesn't accidentally fall out. And then I close it, and everything closes just fine. And if you open a pen and there's a little bit of ink on the section, you have a cloth right with you. works like a charm. And obviously you would be able to make something like that if you were so inclined, but I just saw that cloth and I thought, I know exactly what I'm going to use that for. Perfect fit. Perfect. So that's it. That's the process. I hope I haven't bored you to death. But there we are with back to school choice pens, and that's it. Thank you for watching. Congratulations, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye. I didn't switch that off, did I?